Ba, 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 ba. Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Queer Kid Stuff. Have you checked that out? Queer Kid Stuff. If you haven't, go, YouTube it. Queer Kid Stuff. It's some leather just sitting there going, hi, if you're 4 years old, you might be asexual or non-binary, right, Teddy? Yeah. Fucking thanks. Great. Come on, kids. Here's your milk and biscuits. Come on, sit in front of the telly. It's Queer Kid Stuff. Imagine. Alright, so I've been scraping. If you've been watching, what am I? Shall I? No, I'm not starting again. It's my new rule. One take, Charlie. One take, Charlie. Yeah, you'll suffer for it. Don't be impressed. Don't admire me for it. It just means you get all this toot. Anyway, if you follow me on Twitter at CSDanger, you can block me on that as well. You'll probably have seen what I've been scratching about at today. And as I just writ, I got some really weird shit under my fingernails as I've been scraping the brain's barrel for information for this video. I want to make a video about cultural Marxism, and I don't bother getting the books out. No, you don't get that from me. What you get from me is a simulation of that drunk man in a pub who went to university 20 years ago. He sat next to you and he wants to tell you all about it. Yep, that's what you get from me. It's authentic. Authenticity. Right. It came up, what's it, can't remember the geezer's name. I was watching a lecture about diversity and how it's never really been challenged on a practical level. It's just assumed. It seems like a good idea. It seems to make sense, and yet if you have a look at some recent studies, it's often failed. Big companies like JP Morgan who've put literally millions, like $50 million into diversity programs to get sort of like more black people, more BMEs, or more women, in all this in certain places. And in some instances, after investing that kind of money, the amount of the group they tried to increase has actually gone down. And I was thinking about it in terms of tribalism. At the moment, it seems to me that diversity, as part of the multicultural agenda, diversity is almost like an earnings cap on white people. It's like we are still a very tribal society. We live together in these cities, but in tribes of similar groupage. I think that's fair to say. And it's like a punishment for success of the white European. No, you've done too well. That this particular tribe, defined by these characteristics, has done too well. So we're going to punish you. And they do it to why? And they'll tell you themselves, to benefit those communities. The communities that they decide are neglected in their representation in certain areas. And when they say benefit these communities, what they mean by communities is tribes. So they're punishing the most successful tribe for the benefit of other tribes. Thanks. Thanks. That's what you get in today's culture for doing well. Discriminated against because of the colour of your skin. Amazing. Anyway, I was thinking about all that, and I got my head involved in cultural Marxism, and I started thinking, okay, so what is that? And it's a weird one because it's two things. I think here's the problem. You hear a lot of people say it and it's almost rushed. It's sort of like, well, that's part of the cultural Marxism that's going on today. Or, it's rarely is it defined or said with, it's rarely contextualised. And because I think it's two things. Let's start with the Frankfurt School. Now, again, the weird one, the Frankfurt School, because didn't actually exist. It's a group of thinkers with kind of similar ideas, certainly a lot of overlaps. They were only in Frankfurt for a while, fucked off to America, I think just before the Second World War. They appeared between the wars, basically, between the two big European wars. And you got figures like Theodor Adorno, Max Horkheimer, Erich Fromm, Walter Benjamin, Herbert Marcuse, Franz Newman, Well, you know, later on Jürgen Habermas and others. Some people could give you a list of their Frankfurt School and it'd be almost completely different names and still be a legitimate definition of that group. I mean, I think maybe Adorno and Horkheimer are sort of stalwarts of what a Frankfurt School will always be. The Nazis burnt Adorno's library at 20,000 books. Ouch. Didn't like them. Now, the weird thing is, the Frankfurt School get credited with today's identity politics crowd, with today's progressives, you know. Oh, this all comes from those Frankfurt School. Now, I trusted those people when I read their work, especially Adorno and especially Walter Benjamin. I trusted them, you know. I still do. I still do. I'll tell you now, I think they wanted to make a better world. Same as Karl Marx. I don't think Karl Marx sat around thinking, how can I make things awful? How can I set up an economic and social idea that will lead to an authoritarian dictatorship and cause the deaths of millions? That wasn't the idea. How can we make things fair was their angle. And I really believe that. And some of the writing is beautiful from an aesthetic point of view, and also what they said, you know, never throw the baby out with the bathwater. A lot of the solutions suffer. A lot of the analysis, fair enough. You know, people ask why Marx always comes up, you know, in so many areas, because it still remains one of the best scathing analysis of the capitalist system, which is, you know, seriously lacking, really, and certainly was during the 20th century up until maybe like the late 60s when it kind of exploded. But again, mainly on the back of Marx. Literally, his ghost was giving him piggybacks around the campus. I mean, Walter Benjamin wrote an essay called The Storyteller, and my master's degree was essentially a reading of The Storyteller. You know I'm a storyteller. If you watch my channel, you'll see how important it is to me. And that essay, an incredible essay. Yeah, you know, I've still got a lot of respect for these people. He also wrote an essay called Hashish in Marseille. And this is long before a hash culture existed. You know, this isn't a try-hard sort of William Burroughs. This is just some German intellectual in Marseille who ate a bit of hashish. Didn't really know what it was. It's really sweet. It's actually sweet to eat. It's kind of naive. It's beautiful in its naivety. He's in a restaurant looking at a menu. You can imagine. I think it's probably the first ever recorded case of hashish munchies. And he's saying that he's looking at something on the menu, thinking, "Oh, that looks lovely," but then he can't help but catch the item above it and thinks, "Oh, but I don't want to miss out on that." And then the next one, "Oh, I don't want to miss." He just keeps going up, thinking, "Oh no, that," because he could eat it all because he's really stoned. Check it out, Walter Benjamin, Hashish in Marseille. And also, if you're interested in storytelling and you know its position as an aesthetic, as a process, check out The Storyteller. It's in a collection of his work, I think, called Illuminations. Anyway, so this is I've done the old fucking Thai red curry thing again. This is so they set up sort of between the wars. This is my point. And what they done was they couldn't work out why the Western Europe hadn't had a communist revolution. Why there hadn't been an explosion in communism, as Marx had predicted. Because up until that point, kind of what Marx said would happen was kind of happening. And suddenly this wasn't happening. Quite the opposite. There was a rise in fascism and National Socialism, Nazism. And that obviously freaked them out. And so they had this sort of Marxist analysis, the historical materialist methodology of study. And obviously Marx's dialectic, sort of a move on from the Hegelian dialectic, the understanding of contradiction being at the heart of all things human, and how in resolving contradiction you'll move forward and the new idea, etc., etc. Lovely canon, really, right from Socrates, the dialectic, right through to Marx there. Changing, modified, you could say in itself, resolving its own contradictions, and dialectically, the dialectic that moved forward dialectically, that's like searching Google on Google. It's like a bit, what's that film? Being John Malkovich. Not, I think that's better than being Karl Marx. That's not such a good movie though. Anyway, it looked like their Marxism had failed them. There was no communist uprising. There was, however, something happening towards the latter period in the Soviet Union. And so they were like, okay, so, I mean, what can you do in that situation? What can the Marxists do in that situation, in between the two wars, and now the Second World War's on us? One of three things, really. You can abandon it. Fuck it, it's all wrong. Not interested. Marxism, schmarxism. Throw it out the window. Two, you can go, well, actually, he didn't say this, he didn't say that. I'm sticking with it. It's all going to be great because Marx is great. Or number three, you can go, well, okay, let's analyse Marx. Let's look at it. Let's see where it went wrong. Let's see where it fails to understand the society we're in. Let's see where it fails to understand the culture we find ourselves. Why didn't Marx understand? Why did Marx get this wrong? Why didn't he foresee this? What are the gaps? Let's move it on. Let's dialectically analyse Marxism. And there's the addition of thinkers such as Freud. You know, Freud's whole ideas of self and other, of the unconscious and the conscious, which I've talked about in other videos, which you should certainly have a look at. You know, even if you don't go for it, its place in history. There's certainly the history of thought, the history of the creative arts as well. So this all, you know, that was put into this work. And what they really done, the Frankfurt School, again, not as a group, but kind of almost, dare I say, a text in retrospect. You can look at where they overlapped. You can look at where these sort of lines of force converged. And they described a new sort of Marxism, which was less to do with the economic base and more to do with culture. And you see now you make that small step. I think it was Adorno, I know it was. This is one of the few things in this video I know for sure. He said to write poetry after Auschwitz is barbaric. And he also said, who needs constant... actually it might have been Julia Kristeva, the post-structuralist writer, certainly influenced by the Frankfurt School. She said, who needs concentration camps to control people when you've got culture? So you get this new cultural Marxism, a Marxism which involves the, you know, less so much sort of modes of production and alienation from labour. They're still in there, and less the sort of economic base, and less, you know, there was a lot of, what's his name? Hungarian, I think it was the son of a king or some kind of royalty, George Lukács, and his work, History of the Proletariat and Class Consciousness, or something like that. You know, a lot of work about why the working classes don't understand themselves as a class, why that sense of class consciousness. You know, the fact that if the workers just one day went, no, we ain't doing this anymore, there'd be trouble for the ruling classes. You know, if the cogs in the engine stop moving, the wheels on the engine stop moving too. And so they brought in a more of a cultural understanding of society, and I think that's the first form of what is now called cultural Marxism. A Marxism which, just to summarise, if it's possible to summarise such a rambling hodgepodge and kind of tapestry of nuance and guesswork, is a Marxism which took into account the influences and pressures, perhaps, of culture, more so than economics. Okay? So I think maybe between economics and social, you've got cultural, perhaps. I'm not saying they're separate places, but certainly separate ideas. Now, this is where it gets confusing, if I haven't made it already too much. There's the other cultural Marxism, is the simplistic, basic, crude, pathetic, embarrassing, rubbish one, which people like the feminists. Why did you know after that list of pejoratives was it, you know, the money on it being feminists? and your Black Lives Matter. This is the second cultural Marxism, and this is really where they've taken Marx's class structure, the ruling class, the middle class and the working class. The ruling class are the oppressors. They own the means of production. They own the fucking factories. They sit at home, or they play golf, or they fly around in their helicopters, or they snort cocaine off of $20,000 an hour hookers in Beverly Hills, whilst there's people down in the mines in Peru shoveling shit. And then you got the managers, the middle class, who don't own the factories. They just tell people what to do in them. And then you've got the working class, who are right at the bottom, just shoveling shit. So your feminists, your identity politics crowd, your modern, your neo-progressives, they took that and they went, I mean, it's a bit like that, but it's like men are like the oppressors now, aren't they? And women are the oppressed. And someone else went, yeah. And someone else went, yeah, it's a bit like that with like the blacks, innit? Because like the blacks are well oppressed, yeah. They're like the working classes. They're like the blacks, and the whites are the oppressors, yeah. And that's why you've got white privilege, and this is why you've got toxic masculinity, because you're right up there. You're the new ruling classes in the cultural Marxism paradigm. So I think there you go. That's all I was trying to say. I don't think this has been made clear, and it can be quite confusing. Cultural Marxism, as far as I can work out, is those two things. It's the Frankfurt School trying to understand the society they find themselves in, their historical position, through a Marxist methodology, whilst incorporating a new and more complete and contemporary understanding of culture. And then you've got the cultural Marxism, which is the oppressor and oppressed opposition, but instead of classes, it's identity politics. I hope that helps you, because it certainly helped me. And now I suppose the trick is to see if you can spot them when it's being used. Thank you!